And so that bummed me out a little bit because of the fact that even though that project is, in terms of the one that I proposed, a lot bigger than the one that I'm working on here now, that's what we're here for. We're here as a developer to tackle these concepts that in most cases we may or may not have done before.
Absolutely. We are Eastside Roasters. We are a specialty coffee roaster. When we pop up, we've got beans for sale that you can take home fresh roasted. And then we have a few drinks. We've got cold brew iced coffee. We have our signature drink, the Morrison, which is cold brew iced coffee, lavender and oat milk. And then we have the Violet for our non-coffee drinking friends, and that is sparkling water with some lavender, elderflower, citrus in there. Yes, yes.
What do you do with the lavender and oat milk again?
We put that with the cold brew iced coffee. So it's like it's going to be like a sweet coffee drink.
Let's try that. What's that run me?
It's 5 for a small, 6 for a large.
Let's do a small, please.
All right, no problem.
Wow, look at that. Oh wow! So can you talk about what that is there?
So right here we have, this is jackfruit. This is brisket though that I transformed it into. This is our cashew macaroni and cheese. Right here is collard greens. No meat, but it tastes like it's probably some in there. That's definitely flavorful. But then we definitely got some candy yams. All vegan, all good, all organic ingredients, and waiting for you to dive into. Our slogan is bring that mouth here, baby.
I'll take one of those.
Got it. So we're Longevity Vegetarian Cuisine. We're a pop-up. We're all over the city. You can find us here each and every Friday. Here doing the same thing. Usually we'll have chicken or from oyster mushrooms. Ooey, which is salmon burger from jackfruit. Corned beef sandwiches. Anything that you used to eat when you were not vegan, we got it. Yep. So right when the pandemic started, looking for more work, I decided to work from home.
I hear that.
And this is what we decided to do. Cooking has always been a second nature. I think my mother was visually impaired by the time I was 16. And I have 6 younger siblings. So somebody had to be the cook.
It had to be you, huh?
Had to be me. I was the oldest.
What's up, everybody? Eddy Carrington, Mayor of Flux City. Thank you for chiming into the weekly episode. I think this is episode 7. And last week we had a pretty eventful week. The highlight was the groundbreaking that we had. It was really, really good to see the amount of support that this current project that we're working on was able to garner from a number of different supporters, community leaders, council members, the mayor. It was definitely in the real mayor, not just a person or a developer that calls himself the mayor. The real mayor of the city of Detroit actually came to our groundbreaking, and that was pretty cool, to be honest, because that was really the culmination of 3 years worth of hard work, dedication, blood, sweat, and tears, minus the blood, but there was a lot of work in order to get us to the point where we were able to get to via the groundbreaking last week. Getting to that point was really symbolic for me as a developer, somebody who is an emerging developer, who is, coming from the residential side of the real estate game and getting my foot in the door on the commercial side of the spectrum. Getting to that point was pretty major, but I still have a lot to prove. Due to the fact that even though we have all of that support and well wishes, we're in the process of constructing this concept that we've promised to the community. We still gotta make sure we deliver on our promises. And so, not necessarily looking at last week as a celebration, but just a marker in our overall timeline to not necessarily put too much emphasis and focus on. Hopefully we have that same type of support and excitement when it comes time for the ribbon cutting, as opposed to the groundbreaking. So stay tuned for that. We still got a bit of time before we get to that point for this project where we're actually cutting a ribbon. No pun intended. For this project that we're working on. A few other updates this week. It's been nothing too extravagant to share with folks. Most of the things that we've been working on is in preparation for the footing pour, and so we have surveyors and we have individuals coming out marking territories and putting stakes in the ground in order for us to prep the process of adding the footings, pouring concrete for hopefully next week, and hopefully I'll have more to share with you with regard to that process. We did have a chance to look through a few different brick samples, and we ended up coming up with the one that I'll share with you now. This is going to look really, really good on this project. One of the things that we were considering doing prior to closing and prior to construction was to kind of have a more smooth brick with close to matching mortar, but I think the contrast with the mortar and the brick that we're showing you, along with the vinyl siding that we're going to have on this project and the concrete boards that we're putting up on the second and third layer or level of the facility, it's going to look really nice. And so I would love to know what your thoughts are based off of what I'm currently showing you. And of course this can change, but we're getting really close to figuring out what the building is going to actually look like with regard to the low level details and materials that we're touching and feeling and sniffing as we really keep the ball rolling here. Another thing that I ended up needing to do this week was selecting an elevator finish with regard to the walls, the interior of an elevator. And I was talking to a developer yesterday, and one of the things that he said was really eye-opening for him on one of his first projects was the fact that he's gonna own an elevator. He's like, I've never owned an elevator before. And so when he mentioned that kind of hit me too. I'm like, wait a minute, you're right. And getting to the point where we're selecting the interior for the elevator, even before that conversation, I started paying more attention to elevator finishes. I was in a few elevators over the last few days, and I was looking at things that I would normally not pay attention to. like the durability of the walls, the ease of cleaning, if the walls were fingerprint magnets, things of that nature. And all of those different decisions and or I guess observations led to the decision for me to just pretty much keep the elevator as sterile and as metal as possible. I was thinking through a few laminate or vinyl type concepts for an elevator, and just couldn't figure out or get comfortable with the idea that this laminated piece of wood is something that could be easily dented, or not dented, but chipped, may need more maintenance, as opposed to a piece of stainless steel. And these are the types of things that you're going to be faced with making decisions on. So that was an interesting thing where I selected one thing, and then I reached back to my GC and I said, you know what, a few days later, after really thinking through the durability of what I selected at first, making a change to making it currently all stainless steel with regard to the walls of this elevator. And once again, it's more about durability and the ability to keep it clean. I'm not necessarily worried too much about the fingerprints that this stainless steel wall will get, brushed stainless steel. Just wanted to point that out. More so concerned about, hey, is this elevator gonna look decent in the next 5, 7, 10 years down the line? And so another thing that happened this week, we ended up submitting for a project here in the city, closer to the downtown area. We submitted an RFP, had a great concept that we were proposing to the city of Detroit, and we submitted our concept probably a month before the RFP window closed. I'm pretty sure we were probably the first ones to submit our concept. Solid overall vision, solid team, the ability to execute, but we did not get that project. And so that bummed me out a little bit, because of the fact that even though that project is, in terms of the one that I proposed, a lot bigger than the one that I'm working on here now, that's what we're here for. We're here as a developer to tackle these concepts that in most cases we may or may not have done before. Most of the developers that I talk to are working on projects, or are in a majority of the scenarios, the projects that they have under their belt are not like the projects that they've worked on, if that makes sense. So what I'm trying to say is every project is different. Every project has something unique. And in a lot of cases, these developers that are successful always go for larger projects. Once they cut their teeth on one project and learn, they in turn try their hand at larger projects. And so therefore, what I wanted to do was redevelop this piece of vacant land, and once again had a great concept, but ultimately the city decided to go with another developer. Now, one day I may talk a little bit more about putting together an RFP, because that's no easy feat. It's a lot of time. And in this scenario, we even worked with our architect to come up with renderings. I'm not talking about Fiverr.com. We went through the code. We came up with a few different concepts. We brainstormed on, what the community may want over in that area. I sat in on a few community meetings to hear what they are concerned about and what they're interested about or in, based off of the current developments that are happening in the area. And so I used all of that feedback to basically, create this RFP that, once again, of course, I'm gonna, be proud and say that it's the best one out of the group. But, in actuality, I'm pretty sure the city chose a project that fits the need for that area, even if I feel that my project was the best, right? And so I'm waiting to see when they're gonna announce that project in order for me to, just gauge my submission against this developer who's probably more experienced than me. But with that said, we're able to accomplish what we put our minds to, right? We're able to, as long as you're able to execute. And I know that sounds simple enough, but in this realm of development, if you know how to execute and you're willing to go to bat for your concepts, for the community that you're developing within, you can make things happen. And so even with me being a newer commercial developer, and this project being maybe 3 times the size of the project that I'm working on now, I know that I'd be able to accomplish the vision that I proposed. And you have to have that same conviction when it comes to your projects that you're working on, whether it be now or in the future. One thing you have to really, really believe in is your ability to execute. And so just wanting to make sure I kind of share that with you, and hoping to talk a little bit more once again about RFP submissions and things of that nature, because those are really, you'd be surprised at how few developers submit for RFPs in your city, especially developers that are emerging, up and coming, diverse. And with that being said, that allows for your submission to stand out if done right, allowing for you to potentially be able to take advantage of opportunities that may be in your area. And this is just a really quick reminder that if you're an aspiring developer, if you're an individual that has residential real estate experience and don't see yourself tackling larger projects, I am living proof that you have the opportunity to level up. You have the ability to scale your real estate business from the residential side to the commercial side. And I am here to say that this is probably one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do. And I only realized that due to when I had conversations with other developers who said the same thing. I'm so, head down, focused, grinding it out, and I'm finally having a bit of an opportunity to kind of stick my head up, get a little bit of air, and having these conversations with these developers, I once again realized that this is one of the hardest things to do. But that doesn't mean that it's impossible. And when I say this, I mean development. No matter what level of experience you're at, development is a tough business. And the reason being is you're coming up with these different concepts that you're pitching to the community. And once you pitch to the community and you convince the community that maybe you're the right developer for this project. You also have to convince your funding partners, the city entities that you're going to have to work with regard to the rules that they have in place for the area that you're building within. You have to work with retail entities and convince them that this space is the right space for them to put their flag in for the next 5, 7, 10 years. You have to convince yourself and your family that, hey, look, even if this takes 3, 4, 5 years for this dream to materialize, you're going to stick with it, and your family needs to support you through this tough challenge that may or may not produce any type of revenue until you actually have a turnkey property. And I'm speaking specifically from a ground up development, whereas if you're purchasing a property and maybe it's turnkey, maybe it comes with a tenant already, or maybe it's a white boxed space, or a space that you're going to white box and find a tenant within 6 months or a year. Maybe your window is not 5 years, maybe it's just a year, maybe it's just 6 months. Maybe you're able to generate revenue and cash flow instantly to cover your debt service, right? But development is a tough responsibility and business to be in. But I am really enjoying this ride. I'm really enjoying this opportunity to really do what the community is asking of me to do. And so that is challenging, because the community may have demands, and as a developer, you need to figure out a way to generate revenue. You need to figure out a way to cover your debt service. But in some cases, the community may not, or a lot of cases, the community doesn't necessarily care about how much cash flow you're bringing in. They care more so about other things, affordability, the right tenant that may be a small business as opposed to a bigger franchise that is able to sign longer leases and pay higher rent per square foot of your facility. And so yes, it's definitely a lot to undertake. All right. So with all that rambling and with all that being said, once again, I'm really appreciative that you are watching this video. There may only be one person that makes it to the end of this video, and if you do, I really appreciate you, and I'm hoping that you're finding value from the content that I'm providing. And please like, subscribe, or just bookmark this channel at the very least. And I'm hoping to provide continuous content to the people out there that aspire to be developers, such as myself. So, all right, well, that's it for this week's episode, and I'll see you next week. Have a good one.